Oh my God, y'all. Finally. Hello and welcome to the Server Nightmares podcast, the #1 podcast for the servers by the servers, but really fun for everyone because people are crazy. I am your host, Brooke Hayley Martin. And I say finally because I have been talking about doing this podcast for almost a year. I am so excited to be here. I'm cracked an Elysian space dust. We are not sponsored as this is the very first episode, but what's talking about serving without cracking a beer? Qualifications. I've been serving for over 16 and a half years, which is really painful and embarrassing to say. Not like there's anything wrong with it. It's just, I really didn't think I'd be serving past 5 years, let alone 11 more after that. I'm so excited to bring this podcast to you. Not only are we gonna sit here and talk about really shitty, horrible serving stories that have happened to me, to my friends, my peers, my coworkers. I plan on bringing many guests on of people that I've worked with, and hey, maybe even people that I haven't worked with, to like share all the nightmare stuff that happens in the restaurant industry because it is a crazy industry. Oh God. And like there's nothing that servers like to do more than bitch about their job. Let's be real here. I'm recording this after my shift. I was tasting cocktails. We were completely dead. I went home early. I literally took care of 2 people tonight and I stood there for hours, and then I tasted some cocktails and I had a nice little buzz going on. That went away, and so now I'm enjoying my beer. But back to the podcast. Not only are we going to talk about some really funny and horrifying stories, I want this podcast to also give value. So like tips and tricks of the trade, getting a higher PPA so you can make those higher sales, so you can get those higher tips, dealing with really shitty customers, because let's be real, there's a whole lot of shitty customers out there. Hot button topics like tipping and autograt, sexual harassment in the workplace, relationships in the workplace. Just, I want to run the gamut of it all. But also, this is interactive, and I know that a lot of you might be heading to your shift right now, and I'm sure all of you have crazy stories to tell. So, if you have your cry in the walk-in moment, feel free to email the podcast at theservernightmarespod@gmail.com. Once again, that's theservernightmarespod@gmail.com. Tell me your most horrific, terrifying serving stories. And they don't have to be just servers. It could be bartenders too, managers, bussers, runners, whatnot, hosts. I'm not prejudiced out here. Typically, I'm going to start the podcast with reading a Reddit story, but I thought in honor of this being the very first episode, I'm going to give you a little treat. I'm going to read to you my worst Yelp review ever. But not to sway your opinion in either way, I do have to say, this is the worst customer I've ever had. I'm gonna set the scene, and then I'm gonna read the review, and then I'm gonna give my rebuttal to the review, because I have so many things to say. And I don't know if you've ever had a shitty customer where they've left a Yelp review after you had a really shitty experience with them, but you wanted so bad to message that Yelper online, but like you can't, because 1, you can't message people on Yelp. I don't think so unless they change that. And like 2, you could get in trouble and lose your job and the business might find out. So to set the scene, this restaurant that I worked at the time didn't get busy until 7. It was rare that we had multiple turns, even on a weekend, but 7 to 9 slammed. Opened at 5, between 5 and 7, completely dead. But that's not what this story is about. This story happened Saturday at 5 p.m. right at open. And not usual or not typical to this restaurant, we were slammed. I only had 1 bartender on and me, the server, but the bartender at this time, God bless his soul, because he is such a sweet human being, was our slowest bartender. I don't know people who've been serving for years, but like when you have a slow bartender, it just makes your skin boil because appetizers are out, appetizers are finished, and the first round of drinks still haven't hit the table yet. That is besides the point. He was our slowest bartender, and it was 5 p.m. when we are typically dead, and we were slammed. We were so slammed that my manager at the time went behind the bar and started bartending to help. And she is not a bartender, but she was back there helping him make drinks because they could not keep up with it, and drinks were taking so long, and there was just a line of people down the bar and a line of tickets, and they just couldn't keep up. Also, we had an open kitchen counter. People could sit at the counter, so almost like a bar, and then I would come up and serve people behind them. And this man sits down and I walk up to him and I was like, "Hello, sir." "How are you tonight?" And it starts off with, "Can you come to the other side of me? It hurts to turn my neck." So that's how we start. And I'm gonna let him tell his side of the story, and then I'm gonna give my rebuttal. I can't even, hold on. Just like re-looking at this Yelp just like grinds my gears. 1 second. All right. This review is written by DJ S. No photo, completely anonymous. He has 8 people following him, I think, and then 45 reviews. This was written over 7 years ago. He gave 2 stars out of 5 to this restaurant, and he titled it "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly." Guess what part I was? Here we go. "Most of us have had my experience in which 1 or 2 people ruins it all. I had high hopes for this place. It presents well online, fairly solid reviews, and convenient location for me near Sherman Oaks. I'll break it down as the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good: outstanding kitchen staff. Hats off to the sous chef who ran a tight ship. Courteous and accommodating front of the house, especially the host staff. A bit of an awkward layout with bar, chef counter, but it works generally and makes for an intimate experience. The bad: I remember first seeing bread on a menu over a decade ago for roughly $4.50 in Seattle at a Tom Douglas spot called Palace Kitchen. It seemed silly, and I resisted, but finally sucked it up and realized it was really just an appetizer at that price. Fast forward to today, $1. Why bother? Few, if anything, on the menu is less than $12, so saying any bread is $1 is a bit like nickel and diming. Most patrons are savvy these days and understand about spoilage, but instead of a silly buck, make this a $4 and really go all out, or like most good places, don't charge at all. I suspect you build it into the price, and in the end, it is your overhead for the experience you are selling. The ugly: how not to handle a customer upset at something? Go to, I'm not going to mention the restaurant. Golden rule in service: it is all about delivering an experience. Food is one of many things part of that experience. Remember that $1 bread above? Well, I thought it silly and complained about it. Now, most every establishment would not make a scene and simply say done and comp it. I mean, how many people are complaining? I'm not at, will not mention restaurant name, to be cheap. And had it been handled differently, the server would have won a solid tip well over 20%. Worst case, the server would have just put in $1 from the tip and still be over the expected, but not always gotten 20%. I hate this guy so much already. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just like literally my blood is boiling so much. Back to the review. If, on the other hand, a lot of people are complaining, then reevaluate the whole bread approach, don't you think? Is $1 something to ruin someone's experience over? But let's not stop there. Say it isn't comped. Should your wait staff argue with the customer about it? Is it acceptable to have the staff member actually walk away twice after delivering a rude, snippy comment while your customer is mid-sentence, like a scene from some daytime soap's trite, dramatic moment? The staff member was young and seemed a bit inexperienced. Her approach, honestly, was exactly what one might expect at Applebee's or Red Lobster, where you might hear, "Them's the rules, sir." I'm not kidding you, somebody wrote this. The uglier: when a customer is visibly upset and asks for the bill after not really touching their starters. There were no starters. Okay. After not really touching their starters, do you try to make amends / make it right? Not at restaurant that shall not be mentioned. I actually spoke with the manager, who was super nice, understanding, and apologetic. I brought her the bill, which I was going to pay. While I explained my experience, did I care about $17 for the total? No. But was I expecting some sort of gesture to try and salvage the situation from a manager who clearly recognized something was wrong and that I was not happy? Yes, of course I was. Well, I didn't get it. Again, it wasn't the money. It never was. Okay, true, it did start off that way, but it was the experience. That golden rule: make it good. In the end, do I hate the place? Not at all. As mentioned, I thought they were doing a lot right. Would I go back or recommend it? Probably not. Instead, restaurant that should not be mentioned gets this Yelp and my displeasure with the place, which will travel with me when talking with others. Bro, This fool, I cannot. This is how inaccurate people who leave Yelp reviews can be. It's just the audacity. Because first of all, he comes off like, hey, I'm just here to have a good time. I just don't feel like paying for bread. That is not what happened. So back to the scenario that I set. Mr. DJS. Listen, I realize this is the Server Nightmares podcast and that I'm here to tell horror stories and not defend my honor, but I feel like when it comes to this man and the worst customer, the worst person I've ever served in my whole entire life, DJS, maybe episode 1 of this podcast is my form of revenge. Or just the only way that I can rebuttal this. Not like it matters. Nobody fucking read your review, dude. Nobody reads any of your reviews. Okay, I told you about how the bar was super slammed. My manager was back there. This man sits at the bar, and when I come up to him and he says that I have to walk to the other side because it hurts to turn his neck. Already I knew we were starting off to a bad start. He ordered a Vesper and I rang in the Vesper right away. He's my only customer. It was the bar that was drowning, not me. And it's taking forever. And I feel awful, like legitimately feel bad that his Vesper is taking way too long. And so I I keep checking in. I'm super irritated with the bartender and I'm probably being a nuisance to him and to the manager, but like my Vesper is many tickets down the line and it's not coming anytime soon. And that was not my fault. And the thing about the open kitchen was it opened into the bar so he could see that my manager is behind the bar and my bartender is just drowning. So anyways, I come back and I tell this man like, hey, I'm so sorry your Vesper is taking so long. As you can see, they are swamped. Is there anything I can do in the meantime? And this motherfucker asked for bread. And listen, bread is not a terrible ask, right? It's a common, normal ask. There's nothing new about it. But at the time, I was working for a celebrity chef at like a high-end restaurant, but it was still like mom and pop high-end restaurant. They just wanted you to enjoy the food and not fill up on bread. So as a courtesy, they would offer one sourdough slice of bread cut in half with a side of olive oil. The people of Studio City were very crazy and the chef charged $1 for it, right? It's a courtesy. It's a courtesy bread. You can get more pieces, but it's like $1 for a piece of bread. I don't know. They just wanted to deter you from getting it, but like offered it as an option, but not a free option. None of that is in my control. I have nothing to do with that. So anyways, this man orders the bread and I have to let him know because that's what they wanted us to do. I had to let him know that bread was $1. And this man lost his fucking mind. So he was just like, really? $1? You're really gonna charge me $1? I want to talk to your manager. Great, that's totally fine. And I kind of defended the restaurant. I was like, sir, it's just like a courtesy charge. And he's like, no, I want to talk to your manager. Great, I went over to her, who's helping the bartender, and she's drowning. She's like sasses me, right? Because I'm the idiot. She sasses me and she was like, I can't go help him. I can't leave. I can't leave the bar. Okay, no big deal. I'll go back. I'll let him know. So I went back and I told him like, hey sir, I'm so sorry. I'm still waiting for your Vesper and my manager's not available. Do you want the dollar bread? Like, do you want the bread? And he was so upset about it, rants at me again. And because it's an open kitchen, all the cooks are standing right there. So the sous chef that he mentioned is standing right there witnessing all of this. And he was like, fine, I'll take the bread. I was like, great. I ring in bread for $1. Eventually his Vesper comes out, the bread comes out. He still wants to talk to my manager and she still has not come out yet. So there's nothing I could do. So he calls me over again and I was like, yes, sir. And he was like, I want to talk to your manager. I go to her. She's now cut her hand on glass at the bar and is having to burn the ice while also bleeding profusely from her hand and like washing it in the sink. And I go back and I tell him, sir, I'm sorry. She's clearly very busy. She just cut her hand. She cannot come back. And he asked me for the check and he's livid. Great. So I have the $1 bread on there and the $15 Vesper. There are no starters. I don't know what starters he's mentioning because it was just the bread and the Vesper. He asked to talk to the manager again. And I don't know what to do. Like, I literally don't know what to do. I feel alone. And this man, his rage level is just climbing to a 10. So I go back to my manager and I was like, hey, I know you're busy. I know you're dealing with a lot. He's asking for the check. What do you want me to do? And she tells me to drop the check. So what do? I go and I drop the fucking check. And I told her about the bread. She said, just leave it on there. So I did. And this man loses his shit. I apologize again. Sir, I'm so sorry. I start explaining, it's not me. I'm just a pawn in this game. It's the restaurant's policy. It has nothing to do with me. And he starts screaming at me at the top of his lungs about how I don't know customer service and things like that. So motherfucker, I finally just snap at him and I go, sir, you do not employ me. You cannot tell me what to do. And I walk away. Because what the fuck else am I supposed to do? Then this man takes his little $15 check. I'm sure with tax it was $17 like he said in this stupid thing. My manager is in the sink washing the blood off her hand. And he calmly walks up to her and in the most calm, serene way tells her that I yelled at him. And mind you, I have witnesses, sir. He goes and he complains to her and she's dealing with so much and she's washing the blood and he's so calm when he talks to her like a motherfucking psychopath. I can't remember if she calmed the whole thing or just made him pay, but regardless, he left after that, right? And then this woman pulls me aside into the back because instead of asking me like, whoa, what's going on? After I've gone to her now multiple times to tell her what the fuck is going on, she pulls me in the back and starts screaming at me. What did I do? So I told her the story, a much more truncated story than what I told you. And so she kind of calms down a little bit and then she, not believing me, goes and double checks with the cooks and gets their story about it. What do they have to say about it? But thankfully they witnessed it and they were like, no, that man was an asshole. He was screaming at her. He was tearing her a new one and she stood up for herself. And mind you, I had tried to get my manager multiple times. I've been very kind with this man multiple times and tried to diffuse the situation. But also, I don't have the power to take food off your check. I don't have the power to give you stuff for free. I have to go to my manager for that. So DJ S, F you. Just F you to hell. And that is the worst customer I've ever had. So like I said, if you have a story about something terrible that's happened to you while serving, bartending, working in a restaurant, hosting, whatnot, please email the podcast at theservernightmarespod@gmail.com and I will feature my favorites on the podcast. I'm so excited for this journey. I'm so excited to share this with all of you and for people to, and for servers to just have a place where it's like we can relate because let's be fucking real. The restaurant industry is crazy and why is it so hard to decide if you want bottled still, sparkling, or tap water? Like why is that question the hardest question to people ever? And like I said, on top of sharing horror stories, I'm also excited to share some value and relate to everybody in the restaurant industry. You can follow me on Instagram at MacDaddyBrooklyn, as well as watch the pod on YouTube, watch my regular YouTube vlogs. Thank you for listening and have a good shift, motherfuckers.